don't understand why you're 40 years old and playing the game still. So.
Well, I mean, what game do you think you're going to be playing when you're 40? When do you think you're going to stop
Probably
playing games? What's the age? What's the cutoff age?
When you're out of high school and college.
You're a high school kid?
Yeah, I'm in high school. Yeah.
How old are you?
Why does it matter?
Well, I mean, you foresee yourself in the future quitting something you love, like video games? Do you not love video games? You just cruise through it?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of a waste of time when you're that old. But
well, how do you know? You're not old yet. I mean, I can think of probably reasons that video games would be a waste of time for a high school kid, too. Do you have a 4.0? Are you in honor classes to get more than a 4.0?
No, but...
You know what I'm saying? There's more things you could be doing to improve your life than playing video games, too, right?
Yeah, you can study and not play games.
Hey, just recreation, man. Having fun. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
All right, then.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Arcade. My name is Brian, and with me is I consider her a friend, Aydin Paladin.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We used to do shows together like a long time ago. Actually,
Yeah.
you were one of the, I remember when what people call comicsgate now, when it was sort of like starting up, and I came across one of your videos. It was specifically about comics, and I had you and a bunch of other people on together to sort of discuss it. And since then, we've just, I think that we've made some videos together over at HBR, and I know that you're still very much tuned in to the stuff that you've been doing regarding trying to bring some, let's say, integrity to the social sciences.
Yeah.
which is quite the task.
To the best of my very small limited ability by making YouTube videos dunking on stuff, basically.
Yeah. So first of all, it's been a long time. I'd like to do a little bit of catching up. So how have you been? You live in the UK now. What the hell happened?
I know. I've lived here. It's been 5 years.
Yeah. Last time I saw you at ICMI 2019 in Chicago.
Yeah.
And you did a talk about the consequences of the birth control pill.
Yes.
And then I saw you very recently. You were on the Jolly Heretic talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome.
It's crazy, like how much. I mean, I mentioned it came up during that talk. He brought it up because I met Dr. Dutton at a conference about a month before that. And so when I gave a talk at that conference, which was about a video I did recently about how voting makes people really actually depressed and anxious. The whole active democracy is actually really bad for mental health, surprisingly. I'm sure no one's shocked right now, considering the things that are being put, the salt mines that are open all over social media following Trump's win. But and then talking about that. Yeah, so I did a presentation on that at that conference, and then it just happened to come up. So yeah, weird circular stuff because that birth control topic has continued to. I think people have really, to this day, like that has not become the mainstream news it really should have been. I'm shocked it's not a bigger, a more talked about issue about how birth control changes the way that women think about men and are attracted to them. But yeah, that was definitely the last time.
I saw you, 2019, and then I ran into you at Mythicist Milwaukee. Remember when that was when I met you actually the first time. In the flesh.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the meat space.
Yeah. While we were touching grass, we came across each other.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's happened? Like, what's happened with your life? What's going on with you?
Oh, not much. I met my husband. He lives over here. That's why I'm over here. That was actually the first time I met him online. We were playing D&D. He was my DM. So and
that's why I do DMing, because I know that's how you pick up chicks. Totally,
absolutely. Infamously so.
So you met someone online, and you emigrated to the United Kingdom.
Well, I actually live in Guernsey.
You didn't flee.
It's not technically the UK. No, I didn't run away.
Flee the US. It wasn't like, OMG, the US is cooked, I gotta get out, right?
No, not at all. Speaking of current meltdowns, no, it's not technically the UK. It's a small island off the coast. It's a crown protectorate, but it's actually not the United Kingdom. It's the Channel Islands, which are Guernsey and Jersey, are the old Jersey are the two major populated islands.
Jersey, old Jersey.
but I live on Guernsey, which is the slightly smaller island next to it. Henry Cavill is from Jersey. It's probably the most famous
awesome
person that you know of who's from these little islands.
Now we're going to have to talk about Warhammer 40,000 for a little while because we brought up Henry Cavill. But,
right.
But
bless that man for trying to save some of these franchises that he clearly cares about when no one else does in Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, we could get into Hollywood a little bit later because I think there is some interesting now that we've had the election. And by the way, on behalf of all Latinos, you're welcome, especially Latino men.
Well, yeah, the left wants to kick you out now. You're no longer considered minorities because
they're calling us honorary whites. Yeah,
it's unbelievable the things people are saying. Oh, what a time to be alive!
Right, exactly. So, anyway, so yeah, it's good. I'm glad. I'm happy for you. I assume that you are acclimating well and living in the UK with your man is good times. And how long have you guys been together?
5 years. Actually,
5 years.
He was with me at ICMI and Mythicist. And that was the first, he came to the US. That was the first time I'd met him in real life. And then basically he stayed for like a month or 2 weeks or something. And right after that, I went right from the US right after those conventions or those conferences over to back over here.
Yeah.
That was like, so actually what I saw was basically the last time I was living in the US.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy, man.
I know.
That's crazy. Like how fast things change. But yeah, I'm super happy for you. Like,
thank you.
Also another thing too.
Oh, you've been good. It's good. It's been forever.
Yeah, I know. It's good. No, it's definitely good to talk. So another thing I wanted to say is that can't help but notice that in your Twitter bio you have a Christian cross.
I do.
Is that also a recent development?
Yeah. About 3 years ago now, nearly 4, I got really, really sick. Like they told my husband I was brain dead, and I was in a coma and I never break out of it. And then that happens, it kind of changes your perspective on things.
What year was that? What year was that?
It was the year that COVID happened, so it must have been
2020.
2020.
2020.
Right when the pandemic started was when I went into the hospital because he couldn't come see me. I was there. I was in the hospital for 3 months. And in like recovery and I'd lost a ton of weight. I weighed like about 65 pounds or something like that because I had been so sick.
Already like a pretty thin little woman.
Never been super, but yeah, it was really bad. And so I had to like relearn how to walk and stuff. But he couldn't visit me because of COVID. So basically, for 3 months, I couldn't even see him. He one time he walked outside because the hospital's small, so I'm on the ground floor, and he walked outside in the garden, in the just to like wave through the window. God, that was fun couple of years there with the COVID stuff too. But so
when does God come in? Yeah. So when does God come in? How did that happen?
You have to think. Well, what is life really about? It makes you look for meaningfulness. And I think that after that, I was trying to find, and I've always, for a long time, I've been spiritual, but, and I tried other stuff. Like I was a Norse pagan for a while, but it was kind of a LARP. Just sort of, I thought it was cool more than anything, I guess. It wasn't
being
a joke.
Spiritual? You mean like, okay.
I was a pagan. Yeah. I was like, Odin and Thor and Freya and stuff.
I mean, they are very cool. Like,
it's cool.
They are very cool.
It's cool. I mean, like you have to, if you're gonna pick one. I mean, I don't know, like Greek and Roman pantheon. That's pretty neat too. If you're gonna pick something to be pagan about, pick a cool one. But but then sure. I mean, near-death experience, and it's so common. It's almost pedantic to talk about. Is that like you have a near-death experience, and you want to? It's very common to find Jesus after that.
No, it's funny because I have a similar story. And that's what's wild about it. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it behind me, but there's an icon of Christ on the wall. And when I was I actually also really got sick. And it was in 2022 or 2023, like early 2023. And I ended up in a hospital and I had this really bad like brain infection. I was like falling down and and before that, my wife and I had been talking about it because I had this guest on. I have the best guests on my show. I get them, the best ones. I got this guy on named Jonathan Peugeot, who you may have heard of. He usually hangs around with Jordan Peterson a lot, and he's an icon carver, and he talks a lot about symbolism in stories. And one of the things that I've always been really interested in is like the nature of stories and what makes stories that are good and what makes them bad or worse, subversive. And so like my wife and I have been talking about Christianity a lot, and then I go to the hospital, and the whole time my wife's like, she's doing the Jesus prayer all the time, and not for nothing, not to say that this is the reason, but when I came out of it, we both had kind of a revelation. We're like, okay, we're gonna orient our lives. It's basically about like orienting our lives towards the highest good. And then like, because of that, it spreads. So that's kind of like so it's just funny that I saw that you were also sort of going that way, because, I think that before that, I don't know, I just was sort of like an agnostic, you know?
Yeah, most of my life, I had a very short-lived, edgy atheist phase when I was 16, like I think a lot of 16-year-olds do. But other than that, I was basically just agnostic my whole life. And then again, tried to get spiritual for a while, couldn't really get into it. But then, sometimes when you're orienting yourself around something, I think that's really important. And faith does help with that a lot.
Yeah, and I think
finding your center.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are figuring that out too.
Yeah.
Like I'm noticing, like for example, I converted to Orthodoxy, which is like the freaking, like hardest difficulty level for a religion.
Well, my big struggle is that here on the island, it's a very small island. It's about 70,000 people. And I mean, it's, if you want to go to England, it's a 45-minute plane ride, but I mean, we're right there, or France, 45 minutes. We're 5 kilometers from France. We're actually closer to there than England. But there's not a lot of choice in terms of churches on an island this small. There is a Catholic church. There's no Orthodox church. And I still have not actually decided whether I want to go with Orthodoxy or Catholicism. I grew up, I went to a Catholic middle school. I went to a Catholic university for my undergraduate. So I'm used to Catholicism, and it has to be one that I believe in the sacrament. I believe in the saints and stuff. So I that's a big important part to me. But I'm a little bit, at least I can watch Orthodox Mass, which I often do on YouTube, which is better than nothing, I guess. But there's no Orthodox church here.
Yeah, I'm not going to push anybody towards that. I don't think that like Protestants are not Christians, for example.
No.
But one of the things that I thought was super fascinating, one of the things I thought was super fascinating about Orthodoxy in particular was like the actual history of it, and how, during the Bolshevik Revolution, it was the Orthodox Church was like the only sort of like, let's say it was the only refuge for people living under, the rule of the Soviets, the Bolsheviks.
Yes.
So like that, and that's why a lot of times Orthodoxy is associated with like, Russia. And you'll notice, and I just to get a little bit political, in Ukraine, they have an Orthodox church there. It's like mainly those are the Eastern churches of that part of the world, and Zelensky made that church illegal. He banned it under the claim of, it's associated with Russia, but it's not. It's a church on its own. It's a separate entity. But he banned it, and then they put in place of it a state church, which is pretty messed up.
I mean, I have lots of choice words to say about Volodymyr Zelensky, and what a real piece of work I think he is, and just absolutely abjectly corrupt scumbag. But today announced that the Harris administration is going, Biden-Harris, whatever, is one of their last acts is going to give them another $6 billion. Just a little bit extra off the top, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah. I did a big video I was really looking into the history between Ukraine and Russia, because I didn't know anything about it really. And by the way, the people demanding all this money and wanting to send troops and stuff to Ukraine don't know anything about it either. And I really wanted to get into understanding that whole Nazi argument. I found some stuff about Zelensky when I was doing that research. He is a real corrupt piece of work. And the whole Ukrainian government has been since basically its inception. But
not to trust anybody who plays the piano with their penis. I don't think you can trust them. So,
and again, not to say that Russia is not extraordinarily corrupt too. Of course it is. But there's not a fan of Zell there.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, that's good to know. Maybe we can come back to that. So I saw this I was gonna have you on already because I was like, oh, I want to get on some of the people that I've talked about regarding things like Gamergate and Comicsgate, etc. And I know that you and I have talked about Comicsgate and some things related to that. But it just so happens that you released a video around the time that I was going to reach out to you, and it was about representation. And I want to tell people who are watching, if you don't know, you should definitely check out Aydin's channel. It's definitely a lot bigger than this one. And she does really good, really in-depth research, references everywhere. It's very, very meticulously crafted, and I think it's worth watching.
To at least make it colorable.
So it's not
just a bunch of numbers.
So you're not droning on. You have to sprinkle in some references and memes for sure. And the one you did, and I mean, for me, this was kind of obvious, but I think that it needed to be gone through, was about whether or not a person's experience in a video game is better if they can see themselves in the game, right? Is that the fair assessment of the question you were trying to answer?
Yeah, that was the main research question, hypothesis, whichever. I guess it's really just a research question if it's open-ended like that. But we hear that made as not just a claim, as a foregone conclusion all the time from these DEI companies, people at Sweet Baby Inc., your, what's her name, Kim Bell-Ayers of the world. They will say as fact over and over again, representation matters. I need to be able to see myself in a game. You can hear it in their interviews. They say, finally, I can see myself. And it seems to be the only thing that certain people care about in video games. So I needed to answer that question. Well, does it matter? Does it actually do anything? Does being able to see a perfect reflection of yourself make you better at the game, make it more fun? I mean, the goal of video games is to have fun, right? So if the goal is to have fun, let's see if it's related to it. Answer, no. Does it make you feel better about themselves? Answer, really no. Not when it is an actual representation. When it is an actual representation of yourself, it can actually cause people to perform worse at games and have less fun. Because people don't want to see themselves. They want to see an idealized version of themselves, if anything. People don't want to see warts and all, which is why the Dragon Age Veilguard game is so, the character creator is so absolutely absurd. And why what you're seeing people make with the character creator is monsters, they're not making, an accurate representation of themselves. And you put in, what is it? The vitiligo and alopecia and chop surgery scars.
Oh, and don't they have like cellulite? Cellulite, yeah.
Nobody who has any of those things wants to go into a video game and make themselves with warts and all. Or maybe a couple people do, but it's not in the literature whatsoever. And this study that you brought up, actually, I'm a little bit miffed because the study was published while I was finishing up making my video, and it was a little bit too late to add it. But I do have it.
Sharing with you the
article, and then I sent you the actual study here. I do have access to it.
Cool. Well, I'm not sharing that screen right now. I'm just sharing it with you, but we'll look at that one too, because I'm curious about that as well. So. Yeah, I've not for nothing, I've never ever, and I've been playing video games for as long as there have been video games.
Yeah,
I've never said, why aren't they more Puerto Rican men in these games? it just never occurred to me. It was just, I mean, really. But I wonder though, when you do have, so Aydin, you play video games, right?
Yeah.
And you also do tabletop gaming as well. When you do these things, do you think that you want to essentially sort of recreate yourself, even an idealized version of yourself for those? Have you done that?
Well, there's a 4-point typology, PAX par, player avatar interaction, player avatar relationship. This is Dr. Jamie Banks' research. The Seminoles 2012, and 2012 or 2014. No. Her PhD thesis 2012. 2012. Dr. Jamie Banks. There you go. There's it's her doctoral dissertation is on this PAX par model, and a lot of her research has been on that. And what it is, it's a 4-point topology, which is that there's 4 different ways that players tend to interact with or form relationships with avatars, broadly speaking. And it is avatar is me, which is that the avatar in a video game context is you represented on the screen. So that's the people they're talking about. Now, when these people make avatars in other literature outside of Dr. Banks's work, but in other literature that's talked about making avatars, people make an idealized version. They don't tend to make a perfect representation, warts and all. They make a
Like,
prettier,
dark
muscular.
hair. I have dark hair. I'll
Right.
put dark hair, but they'll still have like a six pack, you know,
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly.
Right.
Because everyone wants to be attractive, which is what this new study specifically found. But there was already literature on it. This is just a newer study that came out. Wow, again, I was wrapping up that reaffirmed it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Avatar as me, then there's Avatar as tool. This is by far the most common. It's about 65% of all players, 70%, depending on the measure of all players fall into this category, which is that it's just a tool. It's just an object. It's just the avatar on the screen is just my way of I'm playing a game. It is just there to facilitate gameplay goals. It doesn't mean anything.
Even if it's customizable, like
Yeah,
it's just a tool. What
Mhm.
about when people? So like I play Elden Ring, right? And
Mhm.
I made my avatar Giga Chad. I basically
Yeah.
like made I got as close to Giga Chad as possible, and then I want to do another playthrough. And I want to make Kanye West because I saw someone. You can do it with the sliders. You can make it look
Yes.
just like Kanye. And so, like, what is that more like object or is that something else? Because obviously, I'm not thinking of myself. I just think this would be funny.
Well, I think it was.
So
We've not done a lot of research on that, sadly, but I think
yeah.
that's its own thing. The joke avatar thing is its own. Like, I don't think people have any relationship with it. Maybe they do, but generally speaking, if
Mhm.
you're making a joke avatar, it's not something you're forming a relationship with. Like, I don't know if you're watching anybody's playthroughs of Veilguard.
Oh no, not a Veilguard. No, no.
Oh, some of the
I haven't.
playthroughs, Heel versus Babyface, as his character is just a hilarious looking monstrosity. And I
He
mean,
basically would try to make it as ugly as possible.
everybody did. Everybody
Yeah.
who I'm seeing playing the game is making the ugliest thing imaginable because that's, like I said, that's the people they're going to end up making jokes with it. They're going to make monsters.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the other two parts of the topology, again, so Avatar's object is the most common by far. And then I think Avatar is me, but not necessarily is the second most common. But the other
Yeah.
two are Avatar is symbiote, which is what I tend to be, which is that I don't make avatars that look anything like me, but in terms of how they act in a game, I oftentimes make choices that I would make personally. I'm not one of those people who does evil playthroughs very often. I have done them, but then I always feel bad. Like, I
Yeah,
feel
right.
bad about being mean to NPCs, which
Yeah.
is weird because I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with that in real life, but to IRL NPCs. But
Yeah, there was something funny that you now that you mention it,
Mhm.
the lead director over at Larian Studios, the studio that created
Yes.
Baldur's Gate 3, he lamented the fact that firstly, everyone was doing like good playthroughs,
Yes.
like most of the
Yes.
time, gamers even when they're given all the choices in all different kinds of games, Fallout and Oblivion or the Elder Scrolls, whatever,
Mhm.
they usually play the good guy and they go through the playthrough like that, which I guess disappoints. But what really disappointed him was that what was
White
it?
men.
The overall
Yeah.
majority of players made
Chose a
straight
white
white
human.
men.
Yeah,
Yeah, they made a white human, right?
White
So
human male. And yeah, I remember
he
him
was
being
like,
mad about that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, at least Myth,
like-
like, well, we put in all this work for all this diversity. Why didn't
Yeah.
you make a character with extreme vitiligo? It's like, well, because that's kind of stupid. Like,
And because 95% of your player base are straight white men, or something like that. Maybe not 95, but it's 90% or something ridiculously high. It's
yeah.
well, it's all men for the most. It's certainly 95% men, and then yeah. So people want to play as men. There are
Also,
reasons why men want to play as women, and I can tell you what that is from the literature too. Men like to
yeah.
look at asses. Like, it's pretty
Yeah.
simple. Like, I mean, and tits. That's it. Like, that's when men play as female characters, and there's research on this. It's one of the I talked about it in my video, but it's one of the funniest, like, amusing, just cute, amusing little
Mhm.
study titles I've ever come across. And it's Dwarf Acts Like a Lady. It was the name of the study, and they found that when men were playing female avatars in World of Warcraft, they used more emoticons and emotive language, more flowery language. They physically moved the avatar around more. They jumped more specifically, and were just would hang behind the group rather than leading. So they adopted feminine behaviors accidentally. It seemed accidentally, at least they didn't say that they were doing it on purpose. It's a form of, I think, sort of role play of you're being embodied in this avatar. So how does a female act? Well, a female, these are the stereotypes. So when
Yeah.
men embody female avatars, they tend to be cutesier and more likely to play as healers when they play as a female,
Oh
and more
yeah.
likely
Sure.
to be heel sluts. Women too, by
Yeah.
the way. But
Oh, for sure. Tell me about that a little bit. Well, actually, we'll come back to that because I want to bring up something now that you mentioned that. One of the, I think it was the very first MMO I ever played, and I was like, I didn't know if I wanted to get into it, but I thought I would try it out. I played Final Fantasy 11. So Final Fantasy 11 was the first Final Fantasy MMO. I know everyone's playing 14 right now, but I played 11, and I really wanted to play one of those cat characters.
Now it's Makote. It was
they used to call them Mithras or something.
Yeah.
Mithras, yeah.
Mithra.
And I made a Mithra, but the thing is, the Mithras were all female. Like there were no male Mithras, and then there was another race that was all male, and they were like these big guys,
Yes.
Yeah.
If you don't, there's no reason you would know this. But my name Aydin Paladin is because of Final Fantasy 11, and I sign out every video with Altana Volt. Altana is the goddess of paladins and light in Final Fantasy 11. I was obsessed with that game. I
played it for a solid. Yeah, I played it for a solid couple of years.
10 years of my life I wasted on that game.
I played it both on PS2 and PC because it was on PS2. Both, and I played it. It was like my first network game. But anyway, I played the Mithra because what I really wanted was I wanted to get the ninja class because I always loved the ninja class in Final Fantasy. And the Mithras were, other than the elves, they were probably like the best for that. So I had to be female. And it did, in fact, the thing that was funny about it was everyone assumed that I must have been a female player too.
Really?
And I would, people would do me special favors. They would give me things, and I would sort of like play into it. I'll put in little smiley faces and whatnot,
wink,
and it would get me stuff. I know. I mean, it was so funny because I totally leaned into that. I was like, well, this is like a completely unique experience.
It became a meme later on. That might have been really fairly early on because it became a bit of a joke later in that game's lifespan that every single Mithra player was male because it was
because I like looking at them too. They were a nice looking model. So
it's a good looking model. So I mean, that's absolutely a thing. Is that it seems to be that when men play women, they adopt more feminine behaviors, and women do as well because you're acclimating to what the avatar how you think it's supposed to behave in a certain way. This doesn't mean that there's a really bad study about this that I mentioned in the video as well. It's oh geez, I've got the citation list up here somewhere, but I'll think about it in a moment.
So
basically what they found, it'll come to me in a minute. I really hate this study. That's why I think that my brain's blocking it out. What she did was she had people play Tomb Raider Legend, and in two different missions in Tomb Raider Legend. In one of them, it's just Lara Croft in her normal adventuring gear, and in the other, it's after she's infiltrated this fancy dress party. She's wearing super high heels and a really low cut top because she was at a fancy dress party. So she takes her high heels off to go do typical Lara Croft acrobatic stuff. And she found that women who played that level of the game, felt less efficacious, meant that they felt that they were less able to complete gameplay goals when Lara was dressed in the low-cut top with no shoes.
Or whatever.
Here's the thing, she's not wearing any freaking shoes. Like, duh, that's why people felt less efficacious. I hate when scientists do bad work like that. Social scientists do bad work like that. You didn't understand that there was a confounding variable there. Maybe it wasn't the fact that she's wearing a low-cut top. It's the fact she's got no shoes on. Like, I think that if something, you did find an effect. So was that effect because she's sexy? Or was it because she was dressed inappropriately for acrobatics? I think that's the answer, but of course that's not the one that particular author came up with. I will find it here now.
It was a black. I never played that game, but it was like a black dress with like a high cut on the side or something, to show some leg, kind of like a Jessica Rabbit dress. It was one of those. Okay, so the
it's been Morwitz and Maestro 2009.
So then, why do you think? Oh, here's the thing too. I wonder if there is, if you've read any Theodore Adorno or, okay, so what he had to say about narcissism. And I think this is like what this whole thing about representation is really about. It's sort of like the desire to, I don't know if the people who claim that representation matters, I don't think they're of like the normal brained people, because if you notice the work that Kim Belair has done with Sweet Baby Inc., a lot of the characters look like self inserts. like she's put herself in, and there's a lot of that happens, right? Like
Yes.
Mary Jane, I think it was
Yes.
like the Mary Jane from Spider-Man
They
2.
uglified her to make her look more like the writer.
Well,
Yeah.
they gave her
They
a
did that
big
with,
jawline to look more like the writer. Yeah,
Alloy too from Horizon
Alloy
Zero Dawn.
from
Apparently, am I pronouncing her name
Horizon.
wrong? Because I've never played those games, but I certainly saw what they did to that character model.
Yeah, Alloy, I believe is her name. I only played the first game, and I didn't
Mhm.
even get that far before I got bored out of my mind.
I mean, they
So
look like fun games. If I'm fun enough, I just never got into them. But I certainly saw what they did to that character model, and it's crazy that there were. I even got comments, people saying they couldn't see the difference. I'm like, are you blind? Like, I don't know how much of that's code, but I think also one of the developers on that tried to make her look more like herself. And it's not looking like themselves because it's also representing their ideals in the game. It's a when they say see themselves, they often mean ideologically more than physically. No, the narcissists involved,
Hmm.
they self-insert. And speaking of self-inserts, in that sense, the new Dragon Age Veilguard game, one of the lead writers is a non-binary trans person, right? And the character
Yes.
Todd is, of course, non-binary, and it's oh my god, have you seen even the clips though of this? It's
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I have.
it's
We
so ham
the thing where she
unbelievable.
where this character comes out to their parents,
Yeah.
and and I'm like, what? Why is this like
What
an
was magic?
episode of like growing pains? Like, why? What is this I'm watching?
Every clip I have seen of that character from that game is
Hmm.
all the other characters basically bowing down and worshiping them, and it just they just go on rants about their gender and stuff, like, there's a whole prolonged sequence where one of the characters, Cassandra, who was in the previous games, misgenders, doesn't use they, them pronouns for Tosh, and then goes and does push-ups, a public punishment humiliation ritual to apologize for misgendering, and then another character does it and then goes and does or it's like, "Well, don't apologize for it because then you're just drawing more attention to it. You have to prove that you're sorry by literally getting on the ground and kissing the ground to apologize to me for misgendering." And of course, the lead writer on that game, or one of the lead writers, is a trans non-binary person, and clearly Tosh is
Yeah.
herself their self-insert, making all the other characters in the game kiss their ass. I mean, that yeah, talk about a self-insert.
Yeah, that's true. So uh the idea is it seems to be that this is more about that kind of, like this ideological self-insert or this wish fulfillment,
Mhm.
like I want people to accept me, so I'm going to do it digitally, and then I'm going to put it in a game, and I'm going to basically like have everybody else play that and experience that. This this is
You have to be
something I talked
force-fed it, baby
yeah.
gamer, you know?
Yeah, there's exactly your picky baby. Was it
Yeah.
that the thing that they said? There
Yes.
are picky babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is something that I remember. Again, I've been here since Gamergate 1, even before that.
Mhm.
In 2013 or so,
Yep.
I was looking at very small, independent, like student projects
Mhm.
of video games, and they were all about things like workplace harassment and trans identity. I mean, they were really bad games. Like they were barely games, right? It was like one step
Depression
above
Quest.
depression.
Like,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, it was a step above that. There were graphics, but like,
yeah.
but it was
Astonishing.
the thing is
Big
that
leap.
the delivery system
Mhm.
of these ideas was already present, and I said, oh, they're gonna do this, and I went in I want to say it was like 2015 or 2016. I went to a VR event. It was a VR conference in Silicon Valley. And that was also nothing but like woke bullshit. Like, and they were like, well, we got to use VR to tell important stories, right? Or meaningful stories. And I was like, oh shit, it's already cooked. And then I came back and I warned people. I said they're going to do this, and they were like, no. VR is good technology. It's going to be awesome. I'm sorry, but I mean, there's some good stuff on it, but overall,
sure.
that's where the wind is blowing, guys. Like they're gonna turn this into the new education, just like they did in comics.
Yes. This is
Yeah,
they
go ahead.
specifically talk about it in the literature because, well, there's the constructional humor processing theory, or and there's a whole bunch of constructional humor processing theory is a theory that, for example, when you add related jokes to a lecture, it helps people recall the information being more
Mhm.
embodied. Anything that helps make the information more salient makes it easier to remember. And the digital worlds could be particularly good at that. One thing when we used to do good research in VR, and it is still being done, don't get me wrong, is, for example, veterans who have PTSD can do
Yeah.
therapy with VR. There have been actually studies that have shown that burn victims, you put them in a VR device, and in a snowy, cold environment, they report lower pain. There's really good things that can be done with virtual reality technology, like actually helpful, useful things. I've always been very interested in VR stuff for that reason. But of
Mhm.
course, it also could be a very powerful propaganda tool. Always be aware though that no matter how real this stuff gets, there's always a sort of issue with the verisimilitude. People recognize it's not entirely real, and what media can do is not change the way people think, but make them change what they think is important. It's agenda setting theory.
Yes. Yes.
So it's what issues are important. So, like for example, you ask people on the street what is the percentage of the population that's trans, and now people will give answers like 30% instead of
Mhm.
3. What it actually is because they just
Point
hear about
three.
it
Yeah.
all the time. Or
Yeah.
yeah, ask you about something like a good friend of mine is legitimately intersex. You ask the average person on the street how many intersex people there are now, and instead of that being 0.03 or whatever it is, 0.01, I think you'd find people who would say it's a decent percentile because of agenda setting. And that's what the point is of all of this stuff. It's not actually to change your mind about your opinion on this side or the other, but to change what you think about.
Mhm.
Um,
Or the scale at which you
yes,
perceive things, like
yes,
again, getting a little political, but like for example, abortion.
yeah,
For whatever reason, in this last, well, I know why, but like in
yes,
this last election cycle, abortion became like the ultimate talking point, and every fringe example
yep,
was expanded and it exploded out so that it would appear to be much bigger and more ever present and more of an existential threat
yes,
than it really is. And that was, you can't necessarily just lie to people, but what you can do is you can exaggerate the that which exists on the
yes,
fringe to make it appear larger, and that will have an influence on people's opinions. And especially women, I think they're particularly vulnerable to propaganda.
yeah.
I don't know if you agree or disagree, and
Oh
that's
no,
fair.
no, I tend to agree. Really emotional
Okay.
propaganda, and that's something
Yeah.
called that's called cultivation theory, or specifically the mean world hypothesis. And there's really significant evidence for that. Cultivation theory, not so much. Cultivation's a little iffy on the findings of how consistent. Cultivation theory is basically that it prolonged exposure to a media message can change people's perceptions again of like how common something is, but specifically the mean world hypothesis has been evidenced very thoroughly with data. And what that one shows is that the more local news that people watch, specifically local news coverage, the more dangerous they think the world is. They think that
Oh
crime is
yeah.
higher of all types, the more local news that they watch, because they're exposed to more of it, and it creates a perception that the world is a meaner place than it really is. And I think, like I said, cultivation's not great, but I think you do find some cultivation effects there, where people start to get that perception that yeah, things are abortion is so much of a bigger issue, and there's all these women. I've actually seen this phrase 3 times just today on Twitter from 3 different people, and I think the source is Michelle Obama because I saw her speech talking about it. But
Big
the
Mike.
phrase, yeah, Big Mike himself, is the phrase or something that's more or less identical to this of lying on a table in an emergency room bleeding out. It's that almost bleeding out on a table
Oh
is
my
the
God.
I've seen that phrase 3 times from 3 different people, all lunatics, of course, but one of them was Michelle Obama. And so
Mhm.
that's why I think that's probably the original source. But to hear like that's such a specific thing like that repeated,
That's the thing,
you know?
that little repetition of
Yeah,
these short phrases, like
yeah. Bleeding out on the
a
table.
convicted felon
Right.
bleeding out on the table. What return to form? That was like for the reviews for Veilguard. It's a
Mhm.
return to form, and you saw it over and
Almost
over.
referring to
And
something.
yeah, right. Return to monkey. But yeah, like what I think that works really well. It's like creating this repetition. I think even, well, look at Kamala Harris's entire campaign, right? She repeated phrases, and I think the idea was to
I
say, if you say it at least 3 times, then it becomes like normalized in the
I
minds of
have middle
people.
class background. I was
Yeah,
working
I
class.
was a middle class kid. Yeah.
And then just
Did you
casually be
ever
like,
see that? Did you
"God,
ever
it's
see that
awful."
lady that was doing the Kamala
Oh, she was
impressions?
so good.
Oh,
She
so
was amazing.
hilarious.
She
Very
just had
funny.
it down, like, had
She
it
did.
nailed.
She did. She Kamala Harris. I'm Kamala Harris. Like all
Yeah.
hunched, like
Yeah, the terrible she just,
like
to
a bridge
how did
troll.
they I mean, utterly unelectable, which they knew, but, like, it's so the
I don't
city they
know.
just
It was true, utterly unelectable, but still like terrifyingly
so mad.
close race. Like what? I mean, I don't know. Trump wrecked it, but
Yeah.
I'm surprised that it was even close.
Yeah.
Okay, so so I want to go back to this Theodore Adorno thing. Speaking of like paganism, a lot of like the stuff that guy and why am I forgetting his name? This other Marxist professor from the 50s, the big one that wrote like big essays.
No.
No.
Altmaier's the 80s.
Adorno, and you know what? It's on my Twitter. I'll find it, but. They use, I think he wrote something about the Eros. That's who I'm thinking of. He wrote something about Eros as one of his papers.
Oh,
he wrote like
this sounds familiar, but I can't place it right now.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. I know that somebody in the chat will know who I'm talking about too. But they essentially, the idea was that they would use identity politics to create narcissists who basically focus on these sort of genetic I don't know, like these genetic specifics. It was Marcuse. It's Herbert Marcuse. That's who I'm thinking of. Paulo Freire is the guy who wants to touch children. That
so did Marcuse probably, but
so did Marcuse.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but
the whole Frankfurt School was all full of them.
Yeah, and one of the things that they're one of their other things is, besides like the sort of like encouraging people to be narcissists, is also this desire, which I think is very old, to make everything ugly and to make the profane and the ugly and uplift it and make it like it's like bringing the fringe toward the center.
Yeah, so this comes from Hegel originally, right?
Yeah.
It's which Marx then derives his dialectical materialism from. The original dialectic comes from Hegel. Then Marx develops dialectical materialism. These people, the woke Marxists, whatever you want to call them, who come out of the Frankfurt School, so they're deriving from Marcuse and Adorno and Derrida, etc. What they are doing is their own dialectic. So the way that the Marxist dialectic works, of course, is that you have to deconstruct all social order in terms of hierarchy and make all people equal. Once you deconstruct all social hierarchies, all people will be equal. And you have to continually do this. Yes, so that all people, there's no upper class, no lower class, no classes at all. So Marxism is focusing on the class element, but the original Hegelian dialectic from which Marx derives it is really for any kind of deconstruction. Now, in the more esoteric stuff that Hegel derives his dialectic from, because Hegel is drawing from esoteric literature, and that was specifically that you have to deconstruct everything, because I know what I'm about to say sounds insane, and it might sound like James Lindsay a little bit, but he was right on. He did like find a lot of this stuff out and really dig into it.
I like James Lindsay's work on the whole thing about like studying this and all. I just think he's like batshit insane.
Sometimes he's
terrified of the backlash. He's terrified, and I don't understand it. Like I just don't. I don't know. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't. Yeah, want to. I consider Dr. Lindsay something of a friend. I don't know but he's been kind of weird lately. But what he did find about this whole tracing this stuff back pre-Hegel is that it's the pre-Hegelian, the esoteric stuff is that you have to deconstruct everything, because the world that we live in was created by the demiurge, which is anti-God, and so existence itself is suffering, and we live in hell, and that in order to escape it, you have to deconstruct everything so that you can see the world for what it really is and escape through the pleroma of the world into outside space and become one with God. I'm not joking.
No,
it's
Gnostic. It's Gnostic heresy. It's Gnostic heresy.
But that's where Hegel gets his dialectic from, and where Marx gets his dialectic from. And the woke gender dialectic is the same thing. Gender, sex, race, everything has to be deconstructed and made into everybody flattened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just been rewatching. I'm watching True Detective for the first time, so I almost said flat circle.
Oh, what a good show! You've never seen it?
No.
Okay, so season one.
I know.
Season one.
With the first season.
Freaking! It's like one of my absolute favorite shows.
It's
and if
really
you want to watch, it's really good. If you want to watch something similar, or maybe you've already seen it, but you want to revisit, watch Seven, because it's basically the same arc.
Yeah.
The movie Seven, but True Detective season one is chef's kiss. That's how you do, like, if you want to do really uplifting Christian storytelling without the preachy Bible thumping bullshit, that's what you watch. It's like you would not believe that it was going to go the way it goes. But I'm not going to spoil anything. enjoy.
I got
True
one
Detective.
episode left.
My
of
wife
the first
loves that
season, so
show.
yeah.
Yeah, my wife loves that show. She was
Yeah,
like,
my
"Oh
husband
yeah,
says
this
the
is so
other
good."
seasons aren't as good, but I really enjoyed the first one. But yeah, it's that same thing. So that's what you get with the all this woke crap is that you have to deconstruct everything, and then at the end of the tunnel, I don't think they actually think they're going to escape from the demiurge through the pleroma and to become one with God. But I do think that because the whole thing about the esoteric Gnosticism thing is that we are all God, or you have the potential to become God. It's that extreme narcissist thing that I think draws
It
people
is.
towards this.
Well,
I'm God.
it's Genesis too, because
Mhm.
what like the serpent said to Eve that if you eat of the fruit, you become God. Don't
Right.
believe the God; he's lying to you. He's
Narcissist.
actually evil, right?
Yes. And
That's
what is the tree? What is the fruit of? It's the tree of
the
knowledge. It's
fruit of,
gnosis.
yes, the tree of knowledge, right? Exactly. So, and that's the thing that one of the other reasons why I like moved towards Christianity, because I felt this way for a very long time when I went to art school, like in the 90s.
Mhm.
And I went on a field trip to the Art Institute of Chicago, which is like a museum, an art museum, right? Have you ever been to there? Because I know you were in
Never-
Chicago for that, but I don't know if you hung out there or
No, I didn't.
didn't
I
you?
went to art school too, though. So I mean,
Yeah,
not for
of
college, but
course.
for high school, I went to art school. So
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
ever. I've never been to the institute there, but I've heard of it.
Well, I went there and I went to the modern wing. And when we got into the modern wing, it was all like the ugliest shit.
Yes.
Like there was Pollux and this other stuff. And what I thought was really interesting was that the instructor had to give us the backstory of every piece in order for the
yes,
piece
sense.
to make sense, right? Yeah.
Well,
So
makes
they were,
sense.
oh, well, here's why this is what it is.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't think this is what art should be. I think that there should be like, what if you have to explain it, it doesn't work, because we should get a reaction, an emotional reaction from experiencing it. So when I look at even the guys who are kind of like bucking trends, like the Van Goghs, like the expressionists and all that, yeah, they were still creating something beautiful. They were playing around with color and light and things like that. But as it was moving away from what I call the that which is true and beautiful, and also like divine. And I think that's what beauty is, which is why I think that we have like gone so far away, and I think a lot of it we've just become so materialistic that we're missing what beauty really is. And beauty can be like it doesn't have to necessarily be ideal in terms of like proportions or whatever, but just there's something aesthetically pleasing about an image that has the correct rhythm and balance and symmetry and stuff like that.
You're reminded of that Roald Dahl quote where he talks about ugly people.
Yeah, Roald Dahl is a good example. Yeah,
what was that? He wrote what was the person who has good thoughts can never be ugly. Yes, here it is. If a person only has ugly thoughts, it begins to show on the face. And when that person has ugly thoughts every day, every week, every year, the face gets uglier and uglier until it gets so ugly you can hardly bear to look at it. A person who has good thoughts cannot ever be ugly. You can have a wonky nose, a crooked mouth, and a double chin, and stick out teeth. But if you have good thoughts, they will shine out of your face like sunbeams, and you will always look lovely. So yeah, that's the kind of thing where even if it's not like the most beautiful person or something depicted in art is representing beauty. It should be representing some element of truth, I think, as well. And that's why, when you have to listen to a paragraph explanation of a piece, my one that I'll set aside is that I'm a really big fan of Dadaism, because what Dadaism was a very specific movement and a very specific point of time. It doesn't exist outside of that time. It's post World War I, when
I know about them. Yeah, go ahead.
The level of destruction in Europe was so complete and beyond what people, I mean, of course, World War II had not happened yet, but no one had seen modern warfare on that kind of degree and the way that it decimated Europe. So the Dadaists were kind of absurdists. I would call them the original shit posters of modern shit posters, because all the art was about how meaningless everything is. It was very nihilistic. So there's for example, that's
kind of, I think that you're right about that, but I think that's how this other stuff got its foot in the door. Yeah, it goes through that, like the postmodernists.
Through something serious. Like one of my favorite Dadaist piece is by I think it's Man Ray. It's called Fountain. It's just a public urinal tipped on its side.
Oh, that's Marcel Duchamp.
That's Michel Duchamp, not
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
and Duchamp, when he later on said that because like his whole purpose of doing it was
Yeah.
simply a shit post. He was
Yes.
taking the piss out of the
Yes.
art world, but
Yeah.
then it blew up, and he was like, "What
And
the
the-
hell have I done?"
Yeah, and then people start taking it
So-
serious. That's why I like Dadaism, because they were shit posting, and then like people started doing it seriously. It was like, wait a minute, you could put a
Mhm.
urinal, and I could tip over a urinal and get it put in an art gallery, and he was making fun of that fact, and then it became serious, which is sorry to the Dadaists, Duchamp and Man Ray, and Picasso got his hand in there a little bit too. But yeah, whoops, you accidentally created modern
Well,
art.
that's it. Yeah, that's right. Because like Duchamp was experimenting with movement in his paintings
Yes.
in the past, like
As was Picasso, yeah.
a lot of and so that's the thing. Like the problem, I guess, is that it's fine that those movements existed, but we were not really like wise to catch on to what was sort of
Yeah.
like coming as a consequence. And the art world became extremely elitist after that.
Yes.
And so it's continued to be. And then that also happened with our other forms of expression, like music and film and television. They all just, there's like this, that's why Hollywood elitists are so like irritating, because they have that same, they think that they're like changing the world with their, acting and well, we're waking up to that.
Yeah,
we're
look
seeing
at
that.
what they do every election, for example. They all come out and tell you how to vote because they're so much better than you. They're in movies. Like anybody gives a damn about movies and TV anymore. Again, I'm watching True Detective, which it was on, what was it, 2012, 2013 that show came out? I mean, I don't watch anything new. What did we watch? What was I just watching before this? Oh, I just rewatched House MD, which is a really good show that really holds up. Wow, you could not make that today because of the stuff that House says constantly. Oh my gosh,
Right?
I rewatched
I
it.
mean,
It's like a breath
my
of fresh
wife and
air,
I,
though.
yeah, my wife and I are watching The Sopranos, and that's
Oh yeah, stuff you cannot say. That makes Sopranos.
Tony
No.
Soprano is my freaking spirit animal. That's all I'm saying.
But yeah,
But
now everything is so it's so all the virtue signaling stuff. I don't watch any of this crap. I can't suffer it. But I watch people who watch it. The geeks and gamers type folk, Mauler and those guys.
Yeah.
And I'll watch their reviews, and it's like, well, you guys can watch it. I'm not putting myself through that pain and suffering. You watch it, get paid, and I can get an idea.
Yeah.
But some of the shows, like this Agatha all along thing, just wrapped up. That's just absolutely spiteful, disgusting content made for. I mean, I think The Acolyte is probably the worst. I think that's the worst one I've seen, just in terms of sheer cringe. Made for no one. Made for no one, except for one person. It's made for the people who made it. It's made for the director. It's their self-inserts. It's going back to the video game thing. It's I need to see myself. Narcissism. I think you were right, and I need to be more research on that, because I didn't come across anything looking at dark triad traits. Which you
well, yeah, I don't know, but I think ultimately it's insecure narcissism. It's this thing where they don't
Vulnerable
like who they are, and they think that they can only start to like who they are if they get everyone else to like them enough. And of course, that's not the answer. Like, that's not where you're going to get that, but that's what they're seeking, and they'll burn everything down to get it. So yeah, no, that's what I think it is. I was going to mention something else that I thought was related to that, or that, but now I've lost it. But it's okay. Maybe it'll come back.
It's interesting you brought that up, though, because I think you're right on the money on it too. Is that it's narcissism, but it is very specifically vulnerable, or what's also called hypersensitive narcissism, which is I'm trying to find the instrument for that. But what that is that
it's all about looking for validation. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's exactly what vulnerable narcissism is. When people hear the word narcissist, they think of someone like Donald Trump. They think that's grandiose narcissism of just being super, self-confident. But that's just one form of narcissism. The other form of narcissism is that grandiose narcissists like themselves. Their validation comes internally. Vulnerable narcissists need validation externally to give themselves to bolster their feelings of self-obsession, essentially. Grandiose narcissists do that. They produce that on their own, So that's really it. They need the external validation. They also want the accolades. They want the awards. They want the gaming industry to tell them how progressive and how bold their game is. Like Last of Us Part 2. Neil Druckmann needs the whole gaming industry to give him a pat on the back for putting in a
Oh
a big
God. Oh, for sure.
woman, strong woman, to beat the shit out of the white male protagonist and kill him because
Yeah, I think, and
give him
didn't
a
like
pat on the
I know
back.
I don't know if it's true, but some people have made the case that there is a self insert of Neil Druckmann in the game, and he's the one who has sex with Abby.
Yeah,
I don't know,
her
like that's
boyfriend. Yeah, in the
very weird. Yeah.
I've seen some pretty good evidence for that in the study that I was looking at. Where it was just asking people how they felt about playing The Last of Us Part Two. One of
Mhm.
the participants said that they said that Abby was Neil Druckmann's avatar specifically. They said it in plain terms. I was no longer playing as Joel, and it's like Joel was this character that's kind of me because I've played as him through this previous game. He's sort of me, but he's obviously not me. He's his own person. But when I had to play as Abby, he said, I think, yeah, it was a man. I think it was all of a sudden my agency was ripped away because I was forced to now play as someone else's avatar. I couldn't be Joel. I couldn't
That's
be that
that makes
me and
sense.
the character. I'm now Neil Druckmann's thing. And I don't want to be
Yeah,
Neil Druckmann, you know? Good. Oh, good
I
God,
think
who would
that's
want to?
actually that makes a lot of sense. That it actually makes even more sense that Abby is actually the Neil Druckmann
Yeah,
self insert
I
and
think she
not
is.
some guy with a beard. Because, well, I mean, I'm just waiting for Neil Druckmann to come out. That's what I'm waiting for. Him to come out as trans, just like the Wachowskis.
Right,
That's what I'm
right.
expecting. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. Because like I just think it's there's a pretty decent chance of that. But what I remembered now, what I wanted to bring up, because you brought up this Agatha All Along
Yeah.
and the Acolyte, and the thing
Yeah.
and I don't think this is the only example, but where there seems to be some, like, I'm looking at this gray area between like this kind of social psychological stuff happening, this narcissism, etc., that's going on in our entertainment. But then there's also this weird, like, Luciferian satanic thing where
Yeah.
we're like, you know what I'm saying, where we're like these women, they're glorifying lesbianism and witches, and and basically it's like it is another example of tearing down the middle, the normal, and bringing in the fringe. And I wonder if you like had thought about that, because like
Mhm.
it seems to me that it's not a coincidence that we got lesbian space witches and then we got lesbian superhero witches in like the same year, and
Yeah, of
everyone's acting like this is a big deal, and it's full of like girl boss women, multiracial lesbian women,
course, yes.
and emasculated gay men are
Right.
like circling them. And there's this weird thing they did in the Acolyte where they sort of like they took a shit on the virgin birth, and they made it.
Parthenogenesis by lesbian space,
Yeah.
which is using the Force.
Right. They did immaculate conception
Yes,
with the Force, and it's all women. And
yes,
so like, and I'm sorry, but like whether or not you believe in this stuff in the theological sense,
sure.
these patterns that are happening with
Yeah,
these people, it suggests that they are in fact like doing their own kind of hermetic thing.
they
It's
are.
like when Kamala says we have to imagine what can be, unburdened by what has
What has
been,
been.
and she does like the Baphomet thing.
Yeah,
Like you have
yeah.
to wonder, like, what is that about, right?
Well,
Am
I
I
think it's
crazy?
no, I don't think you're crazy at all. That goes back to it's all that hermetic Gnostic stuff, deconstructing everything. I'm sure you've seen some of the posts of all women being like, "I've been casting hexes on Trump and none of them are working.
Yeah,
I'm trying,"
which is yeah, they couldn't
they
because
tried.
they couldn't get past them
The
because
stars were
the
not
Japanese,
aligned or
well,
something.
it's
Yeah.
because of the Japanese prime minister who's like
Oh,
protecting
Shinzo
him.
Abe, and and Peanut the squirrel.
Yeah, it's like
Are-
exactly Harambe,
yeah,
Shinzo.
they're
They're
up,
all
they're up in
they're
the
all
heavens
doing the
blocking
spirit bomb, like they
spirit bomb, yes,
give us your power. Yeah.
blocking the witch's magic from being able to kill Donald Trump. But look, when you just we actually remove religion from society, people need something to believe in. When they don't have
Mhm.
religion, they will find it somewhere in something. For oftentimes,
You
it's politics.
mentioned cultivation.
Yes,
you can't spell cultivation without
without
cult.
gold. Sure.
So
I mean, people search for meaning. It's inherent. We're born with these big complex brains that are designed for pattern recognition and trying to figure
mhm.
things out so we don't die. And so we don't eat poisoned fruit or go into a dangerous place. That's why we have developed these cognitive heuristics or paracognitive heuristics. And one of those things is searching for meaningfulness to try and make sense of everything. And if it's not religion, as it has been for all of human history, all of it, people have always had some faith, whatever type it is. Well, with the modern atheist movement, it really kicked all of that out. So this is silly. We are scientists now. We're in modernity. So we don't believe in silly sky daddies anymore. Well, you got to replace that with something because people inherently seek meaning. So what do they go
Mhm.
to? Anything. Usually politics, it seems, fringe, insane political stuff. But
Oh, yeah.
oftentimes that also involves weird, culty. Like I said, I got into Norse paganism. There's some weird stuff with the Norse pagans, by the way. Like a lot of these people are white supremacists, right? There's a fraction of people who call themselves Norse pagans who are like just in it because it's like only white people are allowed in Valhalla, essentially, kind of hypothesis. And that's where you get the Sonnen rods and all that kind of shit.
Sure. Yeah.
But which was really
I think that's funny because I think that even in like the land of the Vikings or whatever, the Norse people, not everybody got into Valhalla and they were all
oh
white.
no. No.
You had to do something special to get into that.
You
That
had
was
to
the whole
die in
point,
battle.
right?
You have to die
Yes.
in battle to get into Valhalla. You can, if you live a really good life, you can go to Folkvanger, but there's that it's you don't go to Valhalla. You don't go to Odin's Hall. You can go
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
fields of Folkvanger, but you're not unless you die in battle or in glory. Achieving something glorious. You don't go to Valhalla. But my point is that all that stuff, which was sort of taboo in the past, that also draws people to it because of sort of psychological reactions. Now, I don't know why that still exists. I think they've mostly lied to themselves because these are the same people who bang on about abortion, right? Oh, my abortion rights, my abortion rights. I'm bleeding out on the table. Well, if you are having a miscarriage or you are having a serious threat to your life, there is not a single state in this country that will not assist you. That is
Mhm.
not. They don't know anything about it, but they've mystified it, right? And I think that it becomes part of their sort of colloquial religion. They don't have a faith, so they invent one. And oftentimes it is the satanic shit because it was taboo, right? It was taboo. They still think they're being edgy. I would call it. There's a phenomenon called there's adolescent egocentrism, and then there's also adolescent risk-taking behaviors. So when people's bodies are, when you're young, you're going through puberty, and your body's flooded with hormones. Well, guess what? Young people tend to take a lot of risks. They drive their cars too fast. They drink. They have risky sex. All this stuff. It's unfortunately a normal, but fortunately or not, a normal part of adolescence. And I think that we have an entire couple of generations now, people who are stuck in a perpetual state of adolescence. They've never had to grow out of it. So they're just stuck in this, you can't tell me what to do, dad thing for forever. And further to that point, look at all of these interviews you see with the lefty women. And they do that thing of being like, good relationship with your, or they'll ask them a couple questions about things like, at 5, I'm gonna ask you 5 questions about your life, and you put your hand down when it doesn't apply to you. And the second question is always have a good relationship with your father. All these women, these like leftoid, crazy hair, aposemitism hair women, all of
Yep.
them got daddy issues. In fact, I think it was on the set of The Acolyte. They did this one. Was it Acolyte or was it Rings of Power? I don't remember. But they did this interview with a bunch of the actresses, and they asked them like they were in like a little powwow, and I just used it in a bunch of videos. This clip, I can't recall where it's from though. But they all go, well, "What do we all have in common?" And they'll go, "Daddy issues,
Oh,
daddy
yeah.
issues," and it's just
I
like,
can
oh
see
my
that.
god! Like, I guess they at least recognize it, I suppose. I don't think they recognize how far that goes. When you're looking for daddy, most people would, I don't know, try to find God or actually their real dad, and reconnect with him or something. But instead, they go search it out. The source of power, the patriarchy that they hate, they still deeply desire order,
Yeah.
hierarchy.
They are. I mean, most of the time they're just angry at their father. And I
Yeah.
think that it's because in many cases of something that their mother did to them that they project onto their father. But anyway,
Well, mommy
yes,
often says daddy is bad when she decides
Right.
to leave him, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So if she says, well, you don't have your father, but it's because he was a
He
piece of
did.
shit, right?
Yeah. Right.
So that's kind of where that goes. But okay, I want to move on because I know we've been going for a little over an hour and I want to cover some other stuff. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming in. If you guys have any questions or anything you want to say, just send through a super chat. I'll be sure to read it. And if it's a really good one, I'll just read it out now. But really appreciate you guys joining me on the stream. And please smash that like button. So we're going to look at this. I covered this with John on the Week in Culture show, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this as well, Aydin. So this comes from the Sci Post, and I have this archived, and we covered this on a show over the weekend. New research on female video game characters uncovers a surprising twist. So did you look at this before I sent it to you? Have you seen this?
I sent you the full study.
Yes, you did just now, but you saw it before.
Yes.
Like when okay. So what do you think about this study? And maybe you can like summarize like what the conclusions are. I thought they were super fascinating, but.
Sure. I mean, I'll just read the abstract here since that's the easiest way to do it. Now, I always tell people not to do that. Don't just stop at the abstract. Go read the whole thing. But then again, I have special training in this, like, so I know what I'm looking for. You might not, and I'm not saying that in a disparaging way to anybody. It's just that I unfortunately spent way too many years in college learning how to do this stuff, so I might as well put it to use. So it says sexualization is a prominently studied dimension. Now, by the way, anyone can read this abstract online, but I have the full data. A prominently studied dimension of how media content contributes to problematic outcomes for women, for example, self-objectification. In video game contexts, scholars have debated whether portrayals of powerful characters may disrupt undesirable outcomes of sexual objectification. In 2 studies, we experimentally manipulate sex appeal cues and strength cues in female characters. By the way, again, I couldn't believe that the study came out while I was working on my video because I've been asking for this research to be done. This was part of what my freaking doctoral dissertation was on, and now they've done it. Thank you. No, I'm just happy it's there. I'm glad you did it. I proposed this 10 years ago. Thank you for doing it. Anyway, participants reported their impressions in terms of key person perception, outcomes, and liking of the characters. We also aim to understand how interactivity shapes impression formation by comparing viewing in study 1 to playing in study 2 contexts. Results indicated that sex appeal cues and strength cues interacted to shape character impressions, but did so differently depending on the type of interaction participants had with the character. In both studies, sexual appeal cues produced greater disliking of the characters. Our discussions considered the findings with respect to character design in video games and other media entertainment. But what they did find is that women wanted to look sexy. Women specifically liked the characters better when they were sexy. They used Soul Calibur as a stimuli here, because the Soul Calibur
probably Ivy or
no, they made custom characters.
They made custom characters. Oh, okay.
So they weren't easily identifiable. It was just a customized character, and it was how much armor they had on. So like the strength. If I sent you the study, you could pull it up. You can actually scroll down on page 10. There's images of the avatars that they used. The characters.
Where did you put it?
Oh, I sent it right here in the Video Ninja chat. I can also.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Let me see if I can. Oh, I see it. No, I got it.
Just a PDF.
Yeah, it's a PDF. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna bring it over here and I'll share it with the people in this screen. Okay. So, yeah. I'm sorry. You were saying?
Oh, well, shoot. Where was I? So. Percent selected, characters selected by women. When it came to the characters selected by women versus men, women tended to select, few strength cues, many sex appeal cues were what women selected the most when they wanted to choose an avatar. They chose the character that did not look strong. They chose a character who looked sexy. So for all of these claims that we need to desexualize characters, women don't want to be women don't want to see a big booty, big titty, dumb hoe dressed in a thong. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. And in fact, I've never been able to find this. I cited it in my paper I wrote in graduate school. But it's been so long. I don't have access to the paper anymore. It's somewhere on some old hard drive. But there was a study that was done, and I cannot for the life of me find it. But I don't need to find it now because this study replicates the findings, but in much, much better ways. That was a kind of shitty study in terms of operationalization. But it was in Second Life, and they found that, guess what? When you had women play Second Life, what kind of characters did they make? Oh, the biggest bimbos you could ever imagine. They just Like,
I remember watching a video a
I
while
saw that.
ago.
Yeah.
Do you see that video? There was this one video, it was from Second Life, and it was like a bunch of like black girls online, and all of their
Yeah.
avatars were super like half naked, big asses,
Huge
big
ass
titties, big hair,
Yeah.
and there was some guy trolling
Super
them, and it
sexualized.
was super
Yeah.
hilarious.
What
I
was
was laughing.
that's Charlie's. God, I actually that's the guy who made Charlie's. It's like with like 5 Z's. He did
Yeah,
Esteban Winsmore. That was his other thing. But yeah, I always remember him trolling those. Because my favorite line from all those Second Life trolling videos is where he's like this little like brown skinned elf with like giant pointy ears, and he's standing in a room with some furries in Second Life who are fucking in Second
oh
Life.
god, yeah.
And he's just standing there and he like watching it and commenting, and he's got a very funny voice, and he goes and stands on top of it. He's like, I feel like Neil Armstrong, first man on top of furry orgy. But the best part is there's this other guy, who's like a big werewolf looking dude, like a big wolf guy, furry, and he just
Yeah.
stands in the corner watching, and he's like, oh, what are you here for, friend? And the guy who is fucking the other furries, I know this is a weird tangent because he just stands there and watches and doesn't say anything. You should learn
Yeah.
from him, essentially. And then the other guy, the wolf guy in the corner, he says, does Elrond know you left Rivendell? And so he's like, what the fuck did you just say to me, motherfucker? All of his genuine curiosity that he had up until this point and gets absolutely
Funny.
limited. Sorry, it's a total tangent, but it's that same guy, yeah. Where he went from
Yeah.
giant. Second Life was a good, testament to this. Look at the characters that women make for themselves in The Sims. They make a
Mhm.
big a hoe. They make like the sluttiest bitch ever. That's what women do. They want to look sexy. Women want to be
Yeah.
attractive. Duh. So do
What-
men.
One of the things that I read in the article about this that I thought was really interesting is that women, when they were observing passively sexualized female characters, like, so you're watching, you're a woman and you're watching somebody play Soul Calibur with a sexualized female character, they actually like them less, but when
Yes.
they're controlling them, they like them more.
Yes.
So it's like they get, this is like why I think Tomb Raider is popular with women who play Tomb Raider, people
Yes.
like Melanie Mack and my wife and whoever else. But because it's like they're not separated from her, they're embodying
Yes.
the character more. So yeah,
I found that as well. It in the research that I looked at, very specifically, it was what it seemed to be to me is that when they were talking, I'm trying to find the exact study that I'm referring to here, but it was the people who actually played video games, tended to like the more sexualized avatars. And they didn't have or at least they didn't have an issue with them. It was the people who didn't play video games who said that they would not want to. Oh, yes. Was this Genshin Impact? Was this the Genshin Impact one? No, when was this?
Genshin Impact.
Yeah,
That's basically a waifu collecting machine, right? It's
Yes,
like-
yes.
yeah.
What was this study? I've got it here, I think. No, maybe I don't. Anywho, it doesn't really matter. It's in my video. If you watch my whole video, which is 2 hours long, sorry about that, but it's a lot of research that went into this. But it was essentially, though, what I did find in some of the literature was that, yeah, people who said that they were regular gamers, they didn't care what the avatar looked like, actually. Not really. They just wanted to play the game. And they didn't really give a damn, like, if the avatar was male or female. I do think that there's been some research that shows that women do like playing as female characters. Men prefer to play as male characters. That makes sense, though. But it's like they didn't need it to look like them. And when I make avatars, right, I talk about this in my video as well. I'm really consistent. I make Storm every time. I make a black woman with white hair, which does not look like me. I mean, I have the white hair. I did that part, but like because I loved Storm as a kid, and I like the aesthetic look. I like.
Do you like the big hair Storm, the Mohawk Storm,
I love
or the
Mohawk
little
Storm.
or the little pixie haircut Storm?
Oh, I love Mohawk Storm. That was the best.
Yeah.
I love Mohawk Storm.
Yeah.
But like all my characters, like dark skin, I like to put blue eyes and white hair because I like the contrasted colors. I like Storm. I think that's all that is. That does not look
Yeah.
anything like me. Obviously, I'm pale as hell. So, just because I just like the way that avatar looks, the way that the character acts when I am in a role playing game and I can make choices and decisions like that. I try to pretty much myself. I'm bad at role playing in that way. I'm bad at that in TTRPGs as well. I try to be a different character, but I always end up kind of being myself. That's why I'm a symbiote player. Oh, and going back to that pack sport topology I mentioned at the beginning, the one I left out is the rarest form of player. We think it's under 5%, and that's avatar as other. The avatar, the character on the screen, is not you. It's not a combination of you and someone else. It's not a tool. It is a totally independent person that has their own feelings and desires and goals, and you are just helping them achieve those things by controlling them. Those people are very rare. My co-host is one of them. He is one of the rare avatars as other people, but again, that's a very small subsection of the population. Most people just see it as a tool. They don't really care what it looks like, and that was in the data. And if it's just a tool, I want it to look nice. I want to look at something pleasant on the eyes. Women and men answered the same way across all the literature. At least that I've come across.
I'd be curious because I wonder, when given the choice, I wonder if men are obviously they're most likely to play their own sex, and women are most likely to play their own sex. But where there is overlap, I wonder if men aren't a little bit more willing to play female characters simply because they want to look at them than women are to play male characters. I think that it's about like what you get out of it. I wouldn't be surprised if men, when there is, because the first time I played Cyberpunk 2077, I made a female character. And I base it on a tabletop character from the game because I played Cyberpunk, the actual tabletop game, or I was at the time. And my wife was trying it for the first time, and she made this character that I thought was really funny. And then when I bought the game, I said, I'm going to make your character in the game and play through. But really, like overall, I prefer playing males in most cases. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to find this one as well now, but there was a research that was done in World of Warcraft found that it was women almost always played as female avatars. Right. However, males would be willing to play will pick
more willing to play the opposite sex than women are. Yeah, that's what I figured. I was curious about that. Yeah,
I have the percentile here somewhere. It's something like 90% of women do not gender swap in games that have an option to play as a female, whereas men are. It's like 60-40 or maybe 30-70, something like that. In other words, women almost never did. I think it was in like 10. In fact, they had to throw some of the data out because they couldn't even assess it. In this one study, there weren't even enough women who played male avatars to even consider them in the. Their data wouldn't have been applicable. There were too few participants. Rare.
Just another way that men and women are different like that. So then basically the solution to all this is that you basically like women have to sit down and play Stellar Blade and then they'll just support it. Or what's the other one that's really big? The Last Descendant. That one's got a lot of I think it's called The Last Descendant or The First Descendant.
I mean, I talked about Stellar Blade in my video, and I look again, women will want to play these things if they want to play games. If women actually want to play video games. And the thing is that, oh, by the way, if you want the results I'm looking for that I was talking about for the study, it's on page 16. It's the graphics, figure 5.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me just
that's the one that's for the results for the first study, but that's the one to probably like look at to
here we go.
What I'm
I'll
talking
put it on
about.
the screen there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So you can see here strength cues versus sex appeal cues, men versus women. You can see that men prefer characters with lots of strength cues, low sex appeal, actually, too, as well. Or that's the one they like the most. In Soul Calibur, in a fighting game, they want to play as a strong-looking character. Women want to play as a sexy character. Out of all of these ones, the one that women selected the most, percentile-wise, was few strength cues, high sex appeal. That's what women chose. So all of these claims, again, like you were around again, as you said, in Gamergate and saw all that stuff happen. This isn't new. This has always been the case, and we've always known this implicitly. But why has it taken over a decade? And I, as someone who was a founding member of the Game Studies Caucus in communication research, it's taken this long to get this data. I proposed this 10 years ago. This study. Fuck, man. I'm so annoyed.
Well, at least we're getting it now. Are you going to make another video about this then? Like, or maybe
I might do an addendum.
Like an addendum. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like
I'm just covering this as sort of a backup of being like, hey, while I was working on this, like right before, like I didn't find out about it actually until after I finished it, so I couldn't have added it even if I wanted to. But because it was published think like 2 days before the video came out. So it was which was a little bit like, "Oh, fuck," but same time, hey, I'm glad it's out here. I've been waiting for this for a long time, but here it is. You know, I went through a whole ton of studies to evidence this, but there it is, real black and
Yeah.
white right there.
Yeah.
Women select intentionally attractive over strong characters. Women want to be hot. The proposed study that I did
that's its
is
own
similar.
that's its own strength though.
Mhm.
Like that
Yes, it is.
sexual power
Yes.
is its own power fantasy. This is another thing that we don't
Yes.
want to like, confront. I mean, what about the fact that when it comes to sexual content, not sexy characters, but
Mhm.
actual like sex content, like romance options in games and stuff. It seems to me that women are really into that, like
for
that,
sure.
like maybe more than men. Like I don't know, I don't know if there's any data on this or anything, but it's kind of
I've
like
not seen anything, but from my vibes, right? Well, you certainly see that with let's talk about going back to Dragon Age Veilguard.
yeah.
That's really what BioWare kind of staked themselves on in a lot of ways, was we're gonna make good games, good RPGs, but we're gonna have also this relationship element to them. And I think that's why a lot of women got into Mass Effect, say, they got into Dragon Age. It's because it did have these I mean, it was in KOTOR and stuff a little bit as well, not to the same degree. Mass Effect is really where and Dragon Age is really where they started to,
Mm-hmm.
hype up the relationship aspect of those games. And that did draw in a lot of women. I think so, because women, yeah, they like
Well,
across all the
yeah,
research I looked at, what games
think
do women
about
play? Let's be honest. What is the number one genre of games that women play?
puzzle
Puzzle, number 1. Number 2,
fitting blocks into holes. Is that what you're getting at?
well, no, but no, puzzle's number 1, but then it's after puzzle games, it's those choose your own
Kind
adventure
of,
kind of things.
yeah,
You know,
story-based
story-based.
adventure games like
Yes,
what are those
Life is
those
Strange.
games? Life is
That kinda
Strange, yeah.
Speaking of and talking about the lesbian stuff, I actually and Life is Strange, I have not paid any attention to Life is Strange in a long time, but I was watching Harmful Opinions play the new one that came out, I guess, relatively recently.
Yeah. The
And
one with
speaking of
the warning about transphobia in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and, so I hadn't watched his first part of the playthrough, so I just kind of hopped in, like, while he was, like, midstream playing some of it, and one of the characters, I won't say what her name is yet, but I just asked in the chat, I said, "Is this character a lesbian like all of them in Life is Strange?" And everyone said, "Yes, she is a lesbian." Do you know what her name is? Safi.
Uh
Saphi. Or
Taffy?
S-A-F-I. Excuse me, S-A-F-I. But I said Safi as in sapphic. They made a character named after the act of lesbianism.
Oh God.
I don't know
Oh,
if there's no way that's not on purpose, that they did not call her
no.
Safi as in sapphic.
Yeah. Like,
Just
do these people think that they write good stories? Because it's so on the
they seem
nose, like
convinced.
every time.
It
Yeah.
is. It's like they can't even again, like the Dragon Age Veilguard writing where it's just, "Oh, go, you have to go worship and bow down. I'm sorry I did a transphobia. I'm sorry I'm white. I'm sorry I'm male." God, it's yeah, it's on the nose. They
Yeah.
can't even hide it.
Absolutely.
They're such bad
Absolutely.
writers. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
so bad you need the character lesbian, essentially.
Yeah. This is my friend lesbian. Uh,
Yeah.
I wanted to show you guys something else that I saw today, and I didn't even finish it, but I thought it was pretty neat. So I'm going to put this on the screen and share it. So Elon Musk was on Joe Rogan,
Mhm.
and they had a conversation about video games. Now, Elon Musk has always been like a big supporter of playing video games. I mean, he is a normie in a way because he plays like Diablo 4 and Elden
Yeah,
Ring, but I think that
nothing
he
wrong with
makes
that.
no, I don't think
Hey,
there's
if he
anything
can
wrong
play
with
Elden
that.
Ring, it makes him a little bit less,
Yeah, yeah. Although I
you know.
hear his build in Elden Ring is terrible. but
I'm not
but
shocked by that either.
yeah,
Hey,
but he
I'm too
but
afraid
he's
to
a
play it. I own it.
yeah,
I've been too afraid. I played the original, um, not, oh shoot,
Dark Souls,
the original before
Demon
Demon
Souls,
Souls. I played
Demon
that,
Souls. Yeah.
and I kept dying, like, at the first boss over and over again, and I'm like, "This is just too stressful. I don't think this is a game for me." And that's okay. Look, I can't get good, and I don't have a problem with that. I would like I'm fascinated by those games' lore. I watch big lore videos about them, but I'm just not good at it. So and I'm not gonna get good.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna get good
yeah.
enough. I get too stressed out. So, woman though, I'll play strategy games all day, but I don't. Something about it stresses me out too much. Dark Souls games.
No, I hear you. Dark Souls games can be, but Elden Ring is probably the least challenging.
That's what I've heard, and
Like
I'm fascinated by the lore, and I love the look of the game. I own it
Mhm.
because I support FromSoft, so like I want to keep supporting them. Then I don't play it. Then again, how many people have game libraries on Steam absolutely full of games they've never played? I'm not totally alone in that one.
Yeah.
But still.
Well, okay. Anyway, let's watch this video. I'm just going to let it play. This is actually from a channel called Clayton Morris. Clayton Morris is a journalist that works at Redacted. They're great. And I didn't know that he was like really into video games. So he has his own channel where he just talks about the gaming industry and video games and why, like, he's basically a big advocate and he supports like, us. He's all about the, the wokeness in games being a problem and all that. So, but anyway, let's listen to this clip.
We were talking about something that I think is a really good, because people always think that video games are frivolous. But what you were saying, I think that's really important, is it's so difficult that it requires you to only think about that, and it can like relieve stress.
Yeah.
It can take out the rest of the world because it's so hard.
Yeah.
You can only think about that.
Yeah. I mean, if I play a video game on extreme difficulty, then I have to concentrate fully on the game, and it has a calming effect.
Yeah.
It sort of chills down. I mean, you mentioned, I think, and many people like if you play martial arts or you play pool, like something that forces you. It's like I think anything that forces you to concentrate fully actually has a calming effect. I find it just sort of like kind of a restoring effect. Mentally.
Yeah,
it's good.
Jiu-jitsu's like that.
Yeah.
Archery's like that as well.
Yeah.
Like when you're shooting a bow, you have to. There's so many moving things, and
That's what I do.
You have to think only of it, and it cleans the mind.
Oh yeah, I've seen your pictures.
I was reading a study about surgeons, where they found that surgeons who regularly play video games make less errors.
Well, I mean, video games require manual dexterity, so it makes sense.
Completely makes sense.
Actually, if somebody was like epic at video games, I'd say like their surgical skills can be very good, because in order to be good at video games, any kind of fast reaction video games.
Look at this: 32% fewer errors, 24% faster, and scored 26% better overall than their non-player colleagues.
Oh, I believe that for sure.
That's incredible.
Well,
like that, you should be required in medical school to play video games. Don't you think?
If somebody's like a top-ranked video game player and they say they're a surgeon, I'd be like plus 1, plus 2 type of thing.
Oh, top rank for sure. Well, but this isn't even top rank. This is just people who play.
Well, your manual dexterity has to be extremely high.
Yes.
So you're looking at things on a screen. You're reacting, and sometimes you got like 10 milliseconds to react.
Yes.
And so if somebody's got incredible reaction times and manual dexterity, they're obviously going to be a good surgeon.
Imagine if there was a course that you could take. That course would promote. You would be 26% better.
Yeah.
Everyone would have to take that course.
You'd have to want to do it.
Why would you want a surgeon that's less prepared?
Well, I'm going to pause it for a moment. Someone's sending me a message, and they want me to send a super chow. They sent a super chow to. So we have a super chows on Badger live streams where I do the honey badger stuff. But this is my channel, so I appreciate the Badger live stream, the super chow, but I'm not going to benefit from that. But thank you, Critter. Thank you, Critter. Gives us $47 and says, "Happy to see Aydin with you guys. Been following her too for a while on YouTube. Congrats on the new incoming president. Fight, fight, fight." Oh, you saw my shirt?
Yeah, fight. Let's go.
Yeah. Let's fucking go. I wear it in public. I don't give a fuck. So, but anyway, people in Virginia are pretty open-minded. Thank you, Critter, for that. Appreciate it. But that's going to Allison. So,
whoops.
That's okay. It's okay. Thank you. If you want to send, I can only do super chats and Rumble rants. Rumble's having some trouble. I don't know why, but there's like I don't know if it's their the streaming service is a little bit subpar, but for some reason there's a lot of lag in the Rumble. I'll have to look into it. Maybe it's something I can change on my end. Maybe I can like change the bit rate or something. I have no idea. But thank you for hanging in there anyway. And you can certainly watch the full stream on Rumble after if you like, or just move it back a bit, and then maybe you can just, you'll have a less buffering. But anyway, let's do the rest of this clip.
You would say, "Hey, Bob, did you take this course? You didn't take this course. Don't you understand this course makes you 26% better?"
Sure.
You would have to take it.
Dude,
everyone should have to play video games if you want to be a surgeon.
Well, I think it certainly would be a very good test to see if somebody can't play video games well. Like that means, because you got to move both hands simultaneously.
Right.
You've got to react to something very fast, then on the screen. So, and
here, I'm just
if your keystrokes or your mouse clicks or
Oh, it's
whatever
okay.
are wrong, then
She's
you lose
still
game.
here, guys.
Right.
So, if
Don't
somebody's
leave.
has a good rank in video games, I would say that their manual dexterity must be extremely good.
Well, it's so
Their fine
hard.
motor skills have to be excellent.
If you think about like StarCraft or any game like Quake, any game where a lot of people are playing, to rise to the top, you have to be exceptional. Period. As a human being, there has to be something exceptional about you.
Yeah, actually, if I mention Quake, way back in the day, I was one of the world's best Quake players.
I know we talked about this.
Yeah.
I loved Quake.
Yeah. I in my final semester in college, I probably put more time into Quake than all my college classes.
When I was on news radio, all of the writers were super nerds. They were very, very fun guys, and they had a LAN set up at the studio where they all played Quake. I had never played video games, and I would go in with the writers and just kind of hang out with them. We'd get silly, and then we would all start playing video games and playing Quake against each other. And I got addicted, like hardcore. I got a T1 line installed in my house. I went hardcore.
Oh shit! I remember the T1. Remember that T1, T3.
T1.
Holy shit!
Yeah, sorry, sorry, but having to turn my camera off. I've had like a piece of sand stuck in my eye for like.
How did that happen?
20 minutes.
Do they have sand over there?
No, you
like,
know what I mean, like sleep or whatever. You know what I mean? Like when you get like a little thing stuck in your eye and you're like,
eye boogies.
I can't get it out though. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like keep.
No, it's okay. But I wanted to show that because I think that this is like there's a lot of like this cultural shift away from this like shaming of this pastime as somehow inferior to like other things like sports ball. And I think that is passing. I mean, people still complain about it as a pastime or as a means of entertainment.
It's a male thing. That's why.
Yeah, but
that's why it's been
that's true. That's true. But even other men have shamed it as well. I saw
inferior
what's his name?
Physical sport.
Yeah,
Andrew Tate,
it's
probably. I don't know.
No. Guinness. Guinness, is that his name? The guy that used to work with Vice, got all the tattoos. Proud Boys guy.
McGinnis, yeah.
Gavin McGinnis. That's right. Gavin McGinnis. He basically claimed that video games make you gay.
Yeah, I've heard that shit.
I know it's stupid, and I know that he's just kind of like, but I think that there is a kind of shaming of this thing, which is weird because if I said, well, I just sit in front of the TV and I watch like fucking bullshit shows, like I watch Third Rock from the Sun or whatever, Big Bang Theory, then that wouldn't be a problem. Or I have Seinfeld on reruns. I syndicated.
Rewatch Third Rock from the Sun. Talk about a show you could not make today again. I couldn't believe it. I rewatched some episodes of it not too long ago, and I was like, "Whoa!" I had you could not say any of this today. Crazy. But you wouldn't be judged for that. Games have this weird thing. They get associated with being incels or being antisocial. They always have. That goes back a very long time into the sort of like where it goes back to is Jack Thompson. Jack Bruce Thompson, disgraced, disbarred lawyer who went on a massive campaign against video games in the 1990s, as I'm sure many of you may remember or may have heard about.
He was crazy Florida attorney. He made an appearance in a Mortal Kombat game.
He sure did, because he basically begged them to. He also demanded someone make a game for him, and they did. Like a school shooter game. They made it for him because he demanded it. He's like, I bet you won't do that. And he's like, yeah, they did. He was somebody who got trolled very hard for being so anti-video game as he deserved to, because he was a lunatic. But he was like, and his all stuff came from that conservative sort of neocon Christian perspective of the video games are going to destroy the youth. Now, games are just
Frederick Wortham said about comic books.
Sure, they've been doing that for forever, but now the left has done it as well. Like any kind of Puritan, and I mean this. We're both Christians, so I think that there is satanic stuff that happens, but absolutely there is. But this demonization of video games and stuff, I think, is very off base. And same thing with comics, it was off base. Can these be vectors for satanic or negative influence? Absolutely. But as I said at the beginning, media can't affect how people think. or how they feel about things. It can affect what they think about, but not how they feel about it. It can affect perceptions of the world as more dangerous, for example, that maybe transgenderism is more common than it really is. But it can't affect opinions on those kinds of topics. At least not the idea that it could is something called hypodermic needle theory. It was abandoned in the 1950s because there has never been a single study. If you have a theory that was abandoned 80 years ago, you know that there's a reason why we abandoned that theory because it's bullshit. Not a single piece of research ever in the history of media psychology and pre-media psychology literature, aka in the 50s, has ever found a shred of evidence to support hypodermic needle theory, that media injects people with ideas. That does not exist. It's not real.
Yep.
They like to pretend that it is when it suits them for whatever reason. And they convince themselves, I think, that they have that capacity when they don't.
Yeah. Are you doing any gaming right now, Aydin?
I am. Well, sort of. I wanted to play some more games when I finished that big project because that took forever. What was I playing? I'm replaying Persona 5, which I just finished Persona 3, a replay again.
Weeb.
Yeah, I'm a weeb. a little bit. See, my Steam's all messed up right now because I had to play. I opened up so many old games that I'm not actually playing to get footage from them.
Yeah.
What was I playing recently? I don't remember. Actually, I want to play Metaphor, Refantazo. I haven't Fantazo.
Well,
I haven't bought it yet.
Is it just me or is that just Persona again? That's not the same developers, is it? Or
yes, it's Atlas. It's the same. It's Persona.
Yeah, okay. It's okay. I was just saying it looked a lot like another Persona game.
I'm just in that. I've been in that kind of mood. I also want to replay Final Fantasy X soon, so I can do really awful things to that game. I like to. Once I've played a game like a couple times, I like to just abuse it. Just like, you're my bitch now. I'm gonna do terrible things to the system.
What I figured how to do to 10. What is the thing that you figured out?
The thing I always do is just absolutely abuse the sphere grid. I've played Final Fantasy X probably 20 times. I've played that game a lot, and when I play it, I'm not like a speed runner or something, but it's one of those things where I know it so well that I don't have to think. And speaking of being able to like turn off your brain, like what Elon was talking about, I really think there's a part of it. If you kind of can turn off the active part of your brain, I do that by cooking. Video games do that, and when I play a game that I've played many times, like Final Fantasy X, it just
it's a Zen thing.
Zen, yes.
Yeah.
It's not like my brain actually goes off. It turns off the part of my brain that's like overthinking things, so I can just have fun, and everything just shuts off in a good way. Because if you're constantly thinking and worrying and obsessing over stuff, it's not good, not healthy. Video games are a palliative for that. It's a way out. And I will at some point bring up a quote from Johann Huizinga, who wrote the seminal work on games, not video games, but on games as a concept, Homo Ludens, which, if you know Hideo Kojima,
I've heard the name.
If you're familiar,
I've heard it tossed around. Yeah.
What is the his company that he started for Death Stranding? What's the logo?
Fox. It's a fox, right? Or
it's
am
Homo
I remembering
Ludens. Man the player. Homo Ludens. Man the player. It comes directly from Johann Huizinga's seminal work on play. And I'll just read it now then, I guess. I think I've got it up here, don't I?
Yeah, go ahead.
The best quote is that life must be lived as play, playing certain games, making sacrifices, singing and dancing. And then a man will be able to propitiate. Wow, interesting word. Propitiate the gods and defend himself against his enemies and win the contest. Johann Huizinga's contention within his magnum opus is that play is fundamental to humanity, inseparable from humanity, and it is unique to humanity. It's one of the only things that humans do that is a lot of things that humans do, animals do as well. Things like arguing, debating, these are like, more human traits. But one thing that is unique to humans, amongst the few things that separate us from animals, is games. Animals play. All things play. Animals play, they roughhouse and stuff. Humans create games, which are what Huizinga calls the magic circle.
Yeah.
The magic circle
is talked about that before.
Yes, artificial rules that exist that are made up in the game. In like the baseball diamond, that is the magic circle. The football pitch, that's the magic circle. But then also in video games, you have all these. Why can't I do this thing? Because you can't in the video game. It's not allowed for. You know that you should maybe be able to, but these are the rules. And this appears to be such a uniquely and endemically human thing. Every single culture has invented games for a reason, because games are fundamentally human. Be they video games or sport or whatever. Chess, doesn't matter. Games are like such a core part of humanity. So when you get shamed for being a gamer, understand that you are doing like the most human, basic human thing, or a key part of humanity. You're enacting that. So I get a little irritated when people, with the whole like gamers are losers or whatever. No,
Right.
you're doing something very basic.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like it manifests in different ways, and some people just don't understand the way in which that manifests there. So somebody in the chat said something that I thought was kind of interesting. So I'll go ahead and bring it up. Harvey says, "How do you explain playing fetch with my dog? She can't create the game, but she knows how to follow it." I think you're training the dog to see fetching as like it giving you an inherent reward. So like you teach them to
That's
get the
classical operant
reward.
conditioning. Yes.
Yeah, they don't necessarily think of it as play, but dogs they have evolved alongside us, so there's probably something.
And dogs do
as
play.
well.
They're one of many animals that play. They play with each other. They roughhouse, like I said. Cats play. Most domesticated animals, almost all animals play. Really as young
Primates.
animals. Sure, they all play with each
Yeah.
other. It's a bonding exercise. It might not be play as we recognize it because it doesn't have rules. The rules thing is the human part. Humans
Mhm.
put rules on stuff. Animals don't understand rules unless we place them upon them, like with fetch. Fetch is placing a rule on it and saying, I throw the ball, you bring it back, I say good boy and give you a pet and a treat. That's operant conditioning. That's teaching the animal that if they do this thing, they will get a reward.
Yeah.
So that's basic conditioning. But at the same time, animals play as humans do. Play in and of itself is not unique to humans. Games are unique to humans.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you for that. And what was I going to say? Okay, so we're going to wrap it up here in a bit, but I want to ask you a couple of things.
Sure.
I think one of these things we've already pretty much covered, but I try to ask this of the people, especially people that I haven't spoken to in a while. So in the last 5 years, which is like how long it's been since I last saw you.
Damn, yeah, I know.
I know, 5 years. What do you think is the thing about you that's changed the most? Like, in what ways do you think you've changed the most fundamentally? Like, what is it about you 5 years ago that you look back on and say, "Wow, I've changed in this way"?
Becoming a Christian is a big one.
Yeah.
That's real big up there because I didn't. When you and I last met, I didn't really have any. I was doing that
Neither did I.
spiritual stuff, or trying to like the pagan crap, trying to find meaningfulness.
Yeah.
But that wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
I became a monarchist, I guess, which I think goes hand in hand with the faith thing. But
A
you also see it-
patriarchist.
yes, well, that was expected. You know what I mean? Like this is the final form of patriarchy is going full
I'm just
monarchism.
saying, like that's starting to look really appealing, guys.
Sure is.
Maybe that's what we need. I don't
Maybe
know.
that Baron Trump for successor to the God Emperor.
Right.
I don't know.
But the God Emperor, indeed, yes. Everything happens for a reason. But anyway, so what about anything else? What about your how does your attitude changed? Like, do you feel more optimistic, pessimistic, the same?
It's funny, specifically talking about the election. I was talking to some friends the last 2 days about it, and I don't think it's optimism nor pessimism. I think it's realism. Now, I was being called. I did a stream last night where I was talking. We were doing some salt mining over the results of the election, and I was getting a little bit castigated, just a little bit castigated by my chat, deservedly so, perhaps, for being blackpilled. They were saying I was being blackpilled because I think that Trump was intentionally cycled in. I think that this win was actually not the will of the people. I think that he was intentionally put in place, and I have a lot of reasons for that, for thinking that. And I would call myself clear-pilled, which is that I think that I've just figured out a lot of stuff, which sounds obnoxious and pretentious. And rather than it being black-pilled, it's like reality-pilled.
Sure.
And that means when you see behind the veil, my friend described it as having read the script. And that's how I felt about this whole election cycle, for example. I was just like, well, I don't care because I've already read the script. I know the ending. I read the spoilers. So I don't know. I mean, that might be the biggest thing is just you read a lot of political literature, like important stuff, not modern, nonsense. But go read classical political literature, stuff from the early 1900s in particular, and you can go back and read older stuff as well. There's a lot of value in that, and I think early 1900s, late 1800s political literature will really start to change your opinions on things and make it so that you don't have to wonder as much anymore because you can
Yeah.
start to predict to a degree where it's like, yep, called it. I I don't know if that's a good I think it's I wouldn't actually recommend it in that sense because it kind of takes the excitement out of
Makes
life.
everything like a foregone conclusion,
Yeah,
or
when
it
yeah,
demystifies.
but I mean that's I'm a social scientist, which is some sort of scientist, put that in a bunch of quotes. And so my whole goal in life has always been to figure out the truth.
Hmm.
Uh, and sometimes when you figure out the truth too much, it does take some of the uh, mysticism of it away. I think.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
probably the biggest change.
A little
Is not being.
disenchanting, right?
Yeah, I'm not surprised by anything anymore. I'm just like, well, this might as well happen. Yeah, that's the way it's going to be, I guess. Called
Yeah.
that one. Oh well.
Well, I think things are going to get weirder before
Things
the
are going
year
to
is
get weird
over.
before they get
I
better.
think, yeah, that's right. Okay, and then my last thing is, if you could think of something that a lot of people uh, would not consider to be woke subversive crap, but actually is woke subversive crap, what is one example of something? Because that's one thing that I've noticed is that people will say, "Oh no, this isn't woke. This, whatever product, because of this whatever, right? Things have only gotten bad recently, whatever it is." So, what is a sacred cow? And I'll give you some examples of some answers I got from other
Yeah.
people. So when I spoke to a couple of devs, one guy said Game of Thrones. Now he thinks it's a sacred cow. I agree that Game of Thrones is, you know, well, I know he's talking about the books, right? But it's one of these things that you're not supposed to be able to criticize. Another guy said Call of Duty, as an example. So, what is one like that you think is really going to upset people in the chat?
I'm really trying to think because Game of Thrones, obviously, the show
Hmm.
got really bad. I have not seen what's the new show? The
House of the
Targaryen
Dragon.
House of
House of the
Dragon.
Dragon. Yeah.
I've not seen that. I just don't watch modern shows anymore because I don't want
Neither.
to hurt myself.
Yeah. But this guy was
In my
talking about the
confusion.
books, so he wasn't
I've
even
read the
talking about the
books.
shows.
I've
Yeah.
read all the books. I I don't think they're a sacred. Those books aren't very good. In terms of even though I did like them for a while, and I was why did I like them? Because I was involved in a community of people who were talking about them all the time, and so it was fun to
Hmm.
talk to people about what's going to happen next. Back when George R.
Yeah.
R. Martin was
Sure.
still actually writing the books, yeah, that was an interesting and fun thing to do was to talk to other people about oh, what's going to happen at blah blah blah. In the next book, we were all excited. In that sense, I would say something that's been uncorrupted and appears to be incorruptible because of the temerity of the author is the Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson. So that's Stormlight Archive and
Hmm.
Mistborn and all of that. His works in that it's a giant, massive universe. So if you don't know who Brandon Sanderson is, are you
Yeah, I
familiar
heard
with
the
the
name.
Wheel of Time series? Have you heard of that?
Yeah. 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 I know about that.
So when the original author of Wheel of Time passed away, he left the series to Brandon Sanderson to finish it. Brandon Sanderson is that well respected as an author that another author gave his life's work to Brandon Sanderson to finish.
Hmm.
That's Brandon Sanderson is a madman. He will write like 3 books a year, all of which are like 5,000 pages. They're not that long, but enormous tomes, and he releases them all the time, and they're really good. He develops these complex magic systems. Uh, you know, in Stormlight Archive, I love the magic system. The whole he creates entire deities systems and things like this that go all around it. Really good stuff that doesn't appear to have been in any way um, inflicted with the woke nonsense. Now,
Hmm.
I guess you could say that in Stormlight Archive, all of the main characters are brown, but I don't care. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with it.
Right.
Like it has nothing to do with the plot. I mean, there's some racism in that the most powerful country on the continent are people who have dark skin and blue eyes. It's specifically about like having blue eyes is a big deal because it has something to do with magic. But
sounds I don't think just having people with darker skin color doesn't mean anything. It's like Dune, you know.
Yes,
like...
it has nothing. It's very much. It has nothing to do with the plot. There is some racism. Like one character is very pale skinned and red haired, and that's seen as kind of like a weird thing or a lower class thing. But
that's still like a universal truth. This is something that we do, like the world has, right? Where people treat people differently based on their appearance. Like,
just slightly different in this universe where people with dark skin and blue eyes are seen as high class. People with pale skin and red hair, for example, are seen as lower class, even though she herself is parent ability, but or local lord's daughter, Shalon in the book. But still, there being like racial stereotypes is a part of the book series, but it's not treated in a way that is in any way, I would say, woke. It just exists. Those books are fantastic. I get no wokeness out of them, and by that sense, they appear to be completely unaffected because Brandon Sanderson is too much of an autist to be. That's just my read from it.
Yeah,
like he's way too autistic to care about people complaining about aspects of his books like that, and they are awesome. Like we're talking Dragon Ball Z tier fights in these books, like the coolest stuff ever. Yeah, really, really neat stuff. Like changing the way gravity works in the middle of fights, and it's like, whoa! The thing too about Brandon Sanderson, he won't let anyone touch his work. He is not selling it, so there's not going to be any time. There might be at some point, but there is no time soon that you're going to see a TV show or a movie made on Stormlight Archive because Brandon Sanderson will not let anyone touch it unless he is directly involved on every level. Excuse me. So that would, if you're looking for good media that's unaffected, Brandon Sanderson stuff, and it's a lot of it. So you are in no, if you want to get into a new thing, there is so much content. He's got so many books.
Yeah, I see that. I see like a bunch of books there. Yeah. All right, well, that sounds great. I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thank you, Aydin, so much for hanging out with me. It's been a while, and it's good to see you. Yeah, we should do this again sometime. And yeah, will do. All right. Well, thanks guys for coming on the show. Thank you, Aydin, so much for joining me. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications, leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think about what we talked about on the show today. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. I'm gonna I think I already put your YouTube and your X links in the description. So check her out there. And it was really, really good talking to you. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
And thanks for having me. Anytime, man.
All right, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Long live Vivian.
With the glass ceiling broken, all the oppressed groups shall prosper, especially the most oppressed group of all, gamers.
I want people in the industry to be a little bit louder about people being mean to other people, and maybe say it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe say we don't want you around if you're going to be a cunt.
Yeah.
And hateful. And that the games industry is diverse naturally. Not because anyone's making them be diverse. Because the world is diverse, you stupid motherfucker.
Yeah!
And if you have a problem with that, come fight me. Physically. Bitch.
Has anyone taken you up on that yet?
No, because they're all pussies.
Yep.
Down here, salt is a way of life.
Obviously, the environment down here is all salt. The ceiling's salt, the floor is salt, the walls are salt, and to an extent, the air is salt. And you breathe that in, and you can constantly taste the salt.